Remember, you are the hero in the stories of someone you don't even know, and a villain to someone you do. That is the premise behind the subject of this mad musings, Broken Tales by the World Anvil. Here you play the reformed villains of fairy tales, nursery rhymes, and fantastical tales of yore, facing off against the now corrupted heroes of the same sources. It's quite thematic, where story trumps mechanics and telling a good tale is more important than building the best character. It's a fascinating concept, but how well does it hold up? I'm Mr. Welch, and there once was a bird named Enza. I opened up a window, and influenza. Broken Tales was originally an Italian title published just a few years ago. I tried reading their blog giving the game's history, but it's all in Italian, and from what I could find, I don't know a lot of Italian. Pretty much just in mia difesa ho pensata che potessi piegarsi in quel modo. The game was kickstarted in English, where it raised over $100,000 compared to just an asking amount of $5,000. Alberto Tranci designed the game, Daniel Camersi did the art and the layout, and Jane Toca did the music. I'm unsure how you make music for a book, so I'm guessing this was for the Kickstarter video or similar. The rulebook is full color, 260 pages, with some extra pages left over for maps and character sheets. Thematically, the game reminds me of Little Fears, though only in the style of bringing children's stories to life. Evil life. The book's layout is a bit chaotic, reflecting the insane premise of the world. Akin to Mork Borg, but nowhere near that extreme. Broken Tales actually tries to make sense to the reader. The game has a color motif of red and black, reflecting the world's duality. In short, it's really artsy. See, I was paying attention in class for the entire 2 weeks I had to take art before you removed me for having no artistic talent whatsoever. The background of the story is the king of fairy tales was depressed. No one was paying attention to the old stories of lore in 18th century Europe. But one child did believe in the old tales, and the king was happy and granted the child a single wish and appreciation. The wish was for the villains of the fairy tales to be redeemed and live as heroes. But you can't have a fairy tale without a villain. As the bad guys became good, the good guys became bad. That's where you come into play. Literally, as you are playing one of the newly reformed baddies trying to defend the world from the depredations of the newly corrupted heroes. Captain Hook is trying to stop the children snatching Peter Pan. The noble sheriff of Nottingham is tasked with stopping the merciless highwayman Robin the Hood. Sleeping Beauty is polluting the world with her nightmares made reality, and only the good witch Maleficent can stop her. Chernaborg wants to entertain Eastern Europe as the most kick-ass DJ ever. And the Golden Prince Mordred is trying to overthrow his despotic father and liberate all of England. So how do you get a pedo-hunting pirate, an upstanding lawman, the only sane woman in a kingdom gone mad, the Slavic god of raves, and an exiled crown prince of England to work together? Enter the Order. The Vatican somehow had a contingency for this event and created an organization to assist the reformed villains in reaching their goals. The Church has seen the madness and chaos the Broken Tales are making and hopes to bring them under control by enlisting the help of more benevolent ones. The Order provides the heroes with material support and protects them from the ignorant masses that don't understand the struggle for reality. In exchange, the heroes must track down, eliminate, or convert the Broken Tales to help restore reality. European history has warped because of the power of the tales. Arthur now rules England instead of George. Kingdoms that have never existed outside of books are now a reality, but only inside their borders. You leave the kingdom, and it doesn't exist. You enter its borders, and it's always been there. Reality is breaking down because of the wish, with two different histories for the same region often existing. People remember the history that is most relevant for what they are seeing at the moment, and will immediately forget it if presented with members of the other history. Broken Tales uses the Monad ecosystem. It's a simple system, as this game emphasizes storytelling rather than mechanics. Roll any number of d6s. If any of them come up 1, you fail. Otherwise, test to see how many dice you rolled against the difficulty of how much you needed to succeed. It's pure press your luck. If you don't roll a lot of dice, the odds of rolling a 1 are reduced, but you won't succeed with any real degree of accomplishment. That's the entire gist of the mechanics. You start with 1 automatic success, normally, but if your character's descriptor applies to the situation, you get 3 automatic successes instead. Depending on the difficulty, you need a certain number of successes, from 3 for easy to 7 for hard. But making just enough to pass imparts a cost on the character. You have to exceed the target number for the best results. And there's 2 types of tests, position and defense. In short, defense is combat, position is anything else. All characters get 3 gifts, special abilities tied to their story. 2 gifts are comprised of 2 abilities and 1 downside or cost to each gift. The third is the Dark Ego gift, which is the most powerful, but tied to their original myth's darker side. It can comprise any number of abilities, but it is always activated through taking a wound or the Dark Gift activator. If you have more gifts than costs, this comes from your starting soma, which is a magical energy to power gifts or similar effects. And gifts are left entirely up to the characters to create, with the storyteller's help to balance them. For example, Mordred, the past and present prince, needs a dark ego gift. This has to tie to his original myth, so will involve his jealousy and bloodlust. Mordred takes the ability Fell-Handed King, which gives him the ability to attack everyone adjacent to him as a single action, inflicts extra wounds on each hit, and gives 2 automatic successes on each attack. Sounds great, doesn't it? But you have to attach restrictions to reflect his dark past. So his activator means he can only use this ability when facing his father's followers. His attacks automatically kill anyone he defeats. He can't elect not to attack a valid target. So if he's facing 10 guards protecting somebody the party really needs to talk to, Mordred can't decide to attack everybody except the valuable guy. It's kill them all or nothing. While normally he's noble and charming, in combat against his father's knights, he will even kick the bride in the chest. But he can use this power only if he meets all the requirements. So against bandits loyal to no one, it's not available to him. The game is pretty death-light, being storytelling focused on all. You have so many wounds, if you lose all of them, bad things happen. But losing all your wounds does not mean death. Instead, you can gain a permanent injury, a phobia, or lose an asset until you have to reacquire it through spending XP. Even basic wounds require a description. You have a slash on your leg or a bruise on your chest instead of just a wound. These descriptions will come back to disadvantage you unless you heal them. The other major part of your character is your descriptor. This gives you positive traits that give you bonuses when relevant to the story. It also includes a negative trait that penalizes you when it comes up. One benefit to your negative traits is if they cause you to fail a test, you gain bonus experience as you learn from your mistake. So Mordred is a charming and noble battle-tested knight, but he is fanatical in the hatred of his father and the Knights of the Round Table. If he needs to win over a librarian to get a book, he gets a bonus because he's such a nice guy. If he needs to take a prisoner that works for his father, that's going to be a learning experience. The game is modular. You can use whatever adventures you want, leave out any fairy tales or nursery rhymes that hurt your story. The game is all about stories. It's a great game of what if that lives or dies on the weird matchups you can create. When you've got Jafar trying to deduce the methods and motives of the little match girl before she can recreate the Great Fire of London, the story sells itself. The game doesn't do combat in depth, but it does the build-up and aftermath better than most games. It will require a specific type of player to get the most enjoyment out of Broken Tales. The game can do campaigns as well as one-offs, and it gives examples of both. If you're going to do a campaign, that will require you to do your research, because while it gives you a few fairy tales as examples of heroes and villains, it's nowhere near enough. You're going to need to find a copy of Grimm's Fairy Tales at a minimum to get started, and then you're going to find yourself dredging through 1001 Arabian Nights, the Poetic Edda, the Annales Cambria, and Time Life Books' Enchanted World series. They give you enough for a taste, but if you want your game to take on a life of its own, you've got to do your homework. I will give Broken Tales this: it has a built-in game over function. Not just advice on how to wind down a campaign, but an adventure that ends the campaign when you finish it. The players bring down the one who plots in the shadow, the demon that created this whole mess. And then the campaign ends. The wish is reversed. Shattered Europe returns to normal, mundane Europe, and all the stories are restored to their original versions. The heroes of the Broken Tales return to their villainy and suffer the fate that has always awaited them. That's the poetic part of the game, because the heroes will learn of their own true nature and have to decide to sacrifice themselves to save the world, or keep their current incarnations and leave the world twisted and corrupted by their villainous counterparts. The last time I saw a game that included a game over adventure was the original Torg with the adventure War's End. It's a bold option to put in a game, and one that I rather respect. The game isn't without its flaws. For the next printing, one word: index. Seriously, it's hard to find things in this book on a single read-through. I know it was originally written in Italian, and it has been translated, but an index would be a major help in finding many of the rules. There are not many rules in Broken Tales, but they could stand to be cleaned up with better examples. A step-by-step for some of the characters would paint a much clearer picture on how to build a character. These are more style and ease of play suggestions, but they would be nice in future reprints. Broken Tales is a good game, but it's definitely not for everyone. It can be a hard sell for many players because it's a game focused on storyteller rather than building the best characters. You're playing deeply flawed characters, as that's their defining trait. Building the characters require imagination because everything is left to the players. There's no take this feat or add these numbers together. It's describe your character, design your powers, go fight evil. Evil that was good before the world went mad. It might not be a game that's going to be supporting a years-long campaign, but you can get several fun games out of it, at least if all the players are looking for a new campaign. That's Broken Tales. It's a good game with a few formatting flaws that requires a specific mindset to play. Depending on the exchange rate, you can get copies of the book for about $50 to $60. There's a second book that details some of the characters, but that's not required to play. If the authors want to expand the game, they can always add more fairy tales. But what the game would benefit the most from is a world book detailing shattered Europe, giving us little-known fairy tales from the various nations of 18th century Europe. Next Mad Musings is another game sent for review, Blade Runner. Does this game overcome the restrictions of being a licensed product, or will it be lost in time like Tears in the Rain? Until then, everybody live happily ever after.